The morning air on Kethsaven was cold and thin. Li Mingi pulled her work jacket tighter around her body as she walked toward the old mining site. Her boots made soft sounds on the rocky ground. Behind her, Kim Daeho and Park Haejin followed with their equipment bags. "This place gives me bad feelings," said Haejin. She looked around at the empty buildings and broken machines. Why did they leave everything here? Daeho shrugged. Company went broke. Happens all the time out here. He kicked a small rock with his boot. Easy money for us. Take the good stuff, sell it back on the main worlds. Minji stopped walking and held up her hand. The other two stopped behind her. She had worked salvage jobs for 5 years. Her nose could smell trouble like other people smell food, cooking. "Something is wrong," she said quietly. The 3 humans were not alone. 6 Villani workers walked with them. The Villani were tall and thin with blue skin and big eyes. They were peaceful people who were very good at taking apart machines. Most humans liked working with them. One of the Villani, named Soleth, came up to Mingi. "What is the problem?" he asked. His voice was soft and musical, like all Villani voices. "Look at the equipment," Mingi said. She pointed at some big machines near the main building. "Too new to clean. Someone put those there recently." Daeho squinted his eyes and looked where she pointed. "Maybe the company left their best stuff behind." "No." Minji shook her head. "Look at the dirt around them. No rust marks, no oil stains. These machines were placed here in the last few days." Haejin felt her stomach get tight with worry. She trusted Minji completely. If Minji said something was wrong, something was definitely wrong. "Should we go back?" Haejin asked. Before Minji could answer, the world exploded around them. Bright green plasma bolts came from the rocks and buildings around the mining site. The energy weapons made loud cracking sounds as they fired. The smell of burned air filled Minji's nose. "Get down," she shouted. But it was too late for Daeho. 3 plasma bolts hit him in the chest. His body flew backward and hit the ground. Steam came up from the big holes burned through his jacket. His eyes stared up at the sky without seeing anything. Screamed and ran toward the Villani workers. "This way," she shouted at them. She tried to push them toward some cover behind an old truck. More plasma fire came down like green rain. Haejin felt burning pain across her back as 2 bolts hit her. She fell forward but kept crawling toward the truck. Blood ran down her back and soaked into her shirt. The Villani workers threw their hands up in the air. "We surrender," Soleth called, out in his musical voice. "Please do not shoot. We are not fighters." From behind the rocks, soldiers in grey armor began to stand up. They had long arms and legs and carried big plasma rifles. Their faces were hidden behind black helmets with red eyepieces that glowed in the dim light. Mingi knew what they were. Right away, Krolok soldiers, the most feared fighters in this part of space. They were known for being cruel and for taking slaves from peaceful worlds. One Krolok soldier was bigger than the others. Golden marks on his armor showed he was the commander. He walked down from the rocks with slow, careful steps. His rifle stayed pointed at the humans. "Humans," the commander said. His voice came through a speaker in his helmet. It sounded like metal scraping against stone. "I am Commander Vexvel. You will surrender now." Minji looked around quickly. Daeho was dead. Haejin was hurt badly, but still breathing behind the truck. The Villani workers were on their knees with their hands up. She was the only one still, standing and able to fight. "We are just salvage workers," Mingi said. She kept her hands where the soldiers could see them. "We take old machines. We do not want trouble." Commander Vexvel made a sound that might have been laughing. Humans always say they do not want trouble. But humans are from a death world. You are dangerous even when you do not try to be. "Deathworld?" Mingi asked. She had heard this word before, but did not understand it. "Your planet Earth," said Vex, "full of poison animals and killer plants and bad weather. Most worlds in space are safe and easy. Your world tries to kill everything that lives on it. That makes humans into natural fighters." Vexvel looked at his soldiers. That is why humans are so good at war. You do not die easily. You do not give up. You use anything as a weapon. Very annoying for the rest of us. He pointed his rifle at Mingi. So we do not take chances with humans anymore. We kill them right away. Minji felt her heart beating fast. She looked at Haijin, who was trying to stop the bleeding on her back. She looked at the Vellani workers, who were shaking with fear. She looked at Daeho's body on the ground. You set a trap for us, she said, double quotes. Yes, Dexful said. We put the new equipment here. We knew human salvage teams would come. Humans always go where they think they can find valuable things. But why? Minji asked. We never did anything to you. Vexville tilted his helmet like he was thinking. Humans asked too many questions. You want to know why this, why that. Very annoying, he raised his rifle and pointed it at Mingi's chest. The answer is simple. Soon, the Krolix will control this whole part of space. Humans fight too well. Better to kill you all now before you become a bigger problem. Minji looked into the red glow of his helmet's eyepieces. She saw no mercy there, no chance to talk. Her way out, no way to run fast enough to escape. Any last words, Deathworlder? Vexville asked. Minji thought about her family back on Earth. Her mother who taught her to fix machines. Her father who showed her how to find valuable metal in old equipment. Her little brother who always asked when she would come home from space. Tell my family I tried, she said quietly. Vexville nodded. I will not tell them anything, but your words are noted. He pulled the trigger. 3 plasma bolts hit Mingi in the center of her chest. The energy burned through her jacket and her shirt and deep into her body. Pain like fire filled her chest and stomach. The smell of her own burned skin reached her nose. She fell backward and hit the ground hard. Her vision became dark around the edges. She could hear Haijin screaming her name from behind the truck. She could hear the Vellani workers crying, Commander? Vexful walked over and looked down at her. Another human dies, he said to his soldiers. See how easy it is when you shoot them enough. The other soldiers laughed and began to lower their weapons. Minji tried to breathe, but her chest felt wrong. Heavy and burning. Blood filled her mouth and she could not speak. Her heart made strange sounds in her chest like a broken machine. Vexfell turned away from her body. Search the area, he told his soldiers. Take anything valuable. Kill the wounded human. The Vellani we will sell as slaves. Minji heard his words, but they seemed to come from very far away. Everything was getting dark and quiet. Her hands felt cold, her feet felt cold. She closed her eyes and felt herself sinking into blackness. Commander Vexfell walked toward his soldiers, already thinking about the report he would send to his superiors. Another successful ambush. More humans eliminated. The Deathworld species was not so dangerous after all. Behind him, Minji's body lay still on the rocky ground. No breath, no movement, no signs of life. The commander began to count the seconds. In his head, as he always did after a kill, 1, 2, 3. He did not know he was counting down to his own death. 23 seconds after the plasma bolts hit her chest. Something strange began to happen inside Minji's body. Her heart had stopped beating. Her breathing had stopped. Her brain showed no activity on any scanner the Krolix soldiers might use. To every test they knew, she was completely dead. But Li Mingi was human. And humans came from Earth. Deep in her cells, ancient programming began to wake up. Programming that had kept her species alive on a world full of things that wanted to kill them. Programming that most humans did not even know they had. Her body temperature dropped fast. Her blood moved slower and slower until it almost stopped. Her brain shut down all the parts it did not need and focused on just one job, staying alive until it could fight back. This was something human scientists called death simulation. It happened sometimes to humans who got hurt very badly. Their bodies would pretend to be dead while they fixed the worst damage inside. On most worlds in space, animals that got hurt badly would just die. But Earth was different. On Earth, playing dead might save your life. Predators might leave you alone. If they thought you were already dead, and while they were gone, your body could heal enough to let you escape. Commander Vexvel did not know any of this. No alien species in the galaxy had ever developed this ability. Their worlds were too safe and easy. While Minji's body lay still on the rocky ground, the Krolak soldiers began to search the area. They walked past her without worry. Dead humans were not dangerous. Find anything valuable, Vexvel called to his troops. We will take what we can carry, and then leave. Soldiers grabbed Hyjin from behind the truck. She was still alive, but very weak from blood loss. They dragged her toward the center of the camp where the Volani workers sat on their knees. Please, Hyjin whispered. Let me help my friend. She looked toward Minji's body. Let me bury her, Vex laughed. Your friend is meat now. Meat does not need burying. Inside Minji's chest, her body was working like the most advanced medical machine ever built. The plasma burns had sealed shut the holes in her skin and muscles. They had also sealed her blood vessels, stopping her from bleeding to death. Her liver began to make special chemicals that would help her heal faster. Her bone marrow started creating new blood cells to replace the ones she had lost. Her adrenal glands began to fill with hormones that would make her stronger and faster when she woke up. All of this happened without her knowing it. Her conscious mind was still dark and quiet, but her body remembered millions of years of evolution. It remembered how to survive. Soldier Klexmore walked near Minji's body while looking for valuable scrap metal. He glanced down at her, but did not stop walking. Just another dead human. He had seen many of them. What he did not see was the tiny movement of her fingers. Just a small twitch, like a muscle cramp. Her body was testing its systems, making sure everything still worked. Behind Minji's closed eyes, her brain began to wake up in sections. First came the part that controlled breathing and heartbeat. Then the part that felt pain and temperature. Then the part that remembered what had happened. The memories hit her like cold water. Daeho falling with holes burned through his chest. Hyjin screaming and bleeding. The Volani workers surrendering. Commander Vexvel standing over her with his rifle. Anger began to build inside her chest. Not the hot, wild anger that made people stupid. This was the cold, calculating anger that made humans the most dangerous hunters on Earth. Her body's chemical systems felt this anger and responded. More adrenaline flooded her bloodstream. Her muscles began to tighten and prepare for action. Her senses became sharper and more focused. But Minji did not open her eyes yet. She had learned patience from growing up on a world where the patient predators lived and the impatient ones died. She would wait until the right moment. Commander, called Soldier Vexelen from near the main building. These machines are worth good money, very new fabrication equipment. Vexvel walked toward the soldier, stepping over Minji's body without looking down. How much can we carry in our transport? Maybe half of it, Vexelen replied. The rest we leave behind. Take the most valuable pieces, Vexvel ordered. We can always come back for more. As the commander walked away, Minji's hand slowly moved across the rocky ground. Her fingers found something sharp and hard. A piece of broken crystal from the mining equipment. It was about as long as a knife, and had edges like broken glass. She closed her fingers around it carefully. The crystal cut into her palm, but she did not care. Pain was just information now. Information that told her she was alive and ready to fight. Her breathing was still so slow and quiet that the Krolak's senses could not detect it. Her heartbeat was still too faint to register on their equipment. To them, she was still just a corpse. But inside her head, Minji was planning. She counted the enemy soldiers. 8 of them, including the commander. She noted where each one was standing and what weapons they carried. She looked at the terrain around the mining site and identified places to hide and places to attack from. Most importantly, she studied Commander Vexvel, the way he moved, the way he held his rifle, the way he turned his head when his soldiers called to him. Humans were natural hunters, and Vexvel had just become prey. What about the wounded human? Asked Soldier Zektul, pointing at Hyjin. Vexvel looked over at Hyjin, who was sitting on the ground holding her injured back. Blood still seeped through her fingers. "Kill her," he said simply. "We do not need wounded slaves." Zekdal raised his rifle and pointed it at Haijin's head. This was the moment Mingi had been waiting for. Her eyes snapped open like the eyes of a predator that had been lying still in tall grass. Her pupils were wide and dark, focused with deadly intensity, but she did not move yet. Moving too soon would get Haijin killed and herself shot again. She needed to be smart about this. Instead, she listened. She heard the sound of Zekto's rifle powering up. She heard Haijin's quiet sob. She heard the Villani workers praying in their musical language. She heard Commander Vexfel walking back toward the center of camp. His heavy boots crunching on loose rocks. Minji's grip tightened on the crystal shard. Her muscles coiled like springs ready to release. Her mind calculated distances and angles and timing. The humans who had survived on Earth had been the ones who could think like predators. The ones who could be patient and quiet, and then explode into sudden, overwhelming violence. Vexfel thought he had killed a scared salvage worker. He was about to learn that he had only made a Deathworld predator very angry. Minji's breathing remained silent. Her heartbeat stayed too quiet to detect. But behind her eyes, something ancient and terrible was fully awake now. Something that remembered how to hunt. Something that remembered how to kill. The crystal shard felt warm in her hand as her body temperature began to rise back to normal. In a few more seconds, she would have full strength and speed again. Commander Vexfel stood with his back to her, watching Zekdal prepare to execute Haijin. He had no idea that death was lying 3 meters behind him. Holding a crystal knife and counting his heartbeats, Mingi smiled without opening her lips. The hunt was about to begin. Mingi moved like a shadow rising from the ground. 1 second she was lying still as death. The next second she was behind Commander Vexfel with the crystal shard pressed against his throat. Her left hand covered his mouth before he could make a sound. The crystal in her right hand found the soft spot between his helmet and his armor. She pressed it deep into his neck, cutting through skin and muscle until it reached his voice box. Vexfel's eyes went wide with shock and pain. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. Only blood bubbled from his throat where the crystal had cut him. Minji whispered in his ear. "You said humans ask too many questions. Let me ask you just one. How does it feel to be hunted?" She twisted the crystal deeper. Vexfel's body went rigid with agony. But still no sound escaped his ruined throat. The other soldiers were still busy loading equipment into their transport ship. None of them had noticed their commander was being killed 3 meters away. Minji looked toward soldier Zekdal, who still had his rifle pointed at Haijin's head. His finger was on the trigger, ready to fire. Without letting go of Vexfel, Minji picked up a small rock with her free hand. She threw it hard at a piece of metal equipment near Zekdal. The rock made a loud clang when it hit. Zekdal turned his head toward the sound, moving his rifle away from Haijin. In that moment, Haijin rolled sideways behind a pile of scrap metal. "What was that noise?" Zekdal called out. "Commander," he looked around for Vexfel, but could not see him. The commander was on the ground now, with Minji crouched over him. Blood pooled around his neck and soaked into the rocky soil. Commander Vexfel Zekdal called again, louder this time. The other soldiers began to notice something was wrong. They stopped loading equipment and started looking around the camp. "Where is the commander?" asked Soldier Klexmore. "I saw him walk toward the dead human," said Vexfelen. "Maybe he is checking the body." Minji smiled as she heard this. She was exactly where they expected her to be, right next to the dead human. She rolled the exposed body into a small ditch where it could not be seen easily. Then she lay down in the same spot where she had fallen before. To the soldiers looking from far away, it would look like nothing had changed. Commander Klexmore shouted, "Where are you?" Minji waited until Klexmore started walking toward her. When he was close enough, she could hear his breathing through his helmet's speaker system. He walked right past the ditch, where his commander's body lay hidden. He was looking ahead at Minji, expecting to see Vexfel standing over her corpse. Instead, He found what looked like an empty area with just the dead human woman on the ground. That is strange, he said to himself. The commander was just here. Klexmore bent down to look at Mingy's body more closely. Maybe Vexful had told him to check something about the corpse as soon as his helmet was close enough. Mingy's hand shot up like a striking snake. She grabbed the sides of his helmet and twisted. Hard to the left, the sound of breaking neck bones was very quiet. Klexmore's body dropped next to hers without making any noise. Mingy quickly pulled off his helmet and looked at his face. Krolix looked similar to humans but with grey skin and small sharp teeth. Their eyes were yellow with black pupils. More importantly, she looked at his equipment. Krolix soldiers carried plasma rifles, but they also had backup weapons. Klexmore had a vibraknife on his belt and several small grenades. She took the knife and 2 grenades. The rifle was too big and would make too much noise. For hunting, she needed to stay quiet. Klexmore called Vexilin from across the camp. What is taking so long? Mingy put on Klexmore's helmet. It was too big for her human head, but she could see through the eyepieces. The helmet had a radio system that let her hear all the soldiers talking to each other. She stood up slowly and waved at the other soldiers. From far away, wearing Krolix's armor and helmet, she might look like Klexmore. Found something interesting, she said into the helmet's microphone. She tried to make her voice sound deeper and more like a Krolix soldier. What did you find? Asked Vexilin. Come look, Mingy replied. Bring Zektor with you. This was how humans hunted on Earth. They separated their prey, made them come to killing grounds 1 or 2 at a time. Never let them stay together in a big group. Vexilin and Zektor began walking toward her. The other 4 soldiers stayed near the transport ship. Still loading equipment, Mingy lay back down next to Klexmore's body and pulled the helmet off. She held the vibraknife in one hand and a grenade in the other. When Vexilin and Zektor got close, they saw their dead friend on the ground. They also saw what looked like the same dead human woman who should not be able to move. Where is Klexmore's helmet? Vexilin asked, looking around in confusion. Where is the commander? Zektor added. Mingy answered, by pulling the pin on the grenade and rolling it toward their feet. Both soldiers saw the grenade and tried to jump away, but they were too close and the explosion was too fast. The blast threw them backward and filled the air with smoke and dust. Pieces of metal and rock flew everywhere. One large chunk hit Vexilin in the head and knocked him unconscious. Zektor's left leg was badly injured and he could not stand up. The 4 soldiers near the transport ship heard the explosion and came running with their rifles ready. What happened? Shouted Sergeant Cortham as he ran toward the smoke. Ambush! Zektor screamed from the ground. The human is alive. The human is alive. But when the soldiers reached the explosion site, they found only their wounded comrade lying in the dirt. No sign of any human. No sign of their commander. No sign of Klexmore except for his torn armor scattered around the crater. Where is she? Cortham demanded, pointing his rifle in all directions. I do not know, Zektor cried. She was right here. She threw a grenade. Humans do not come back from the dead, said Private Yexmore. You are seeing things because you are hurt. No, Zektor insisted. She moved, she spoke, she is hunting us. The soldiers looked around nervously. The mining camp suddenly felt much bigger and more dangerous. There were too many places to hide. Too many shadows. Spread out, Cortham ordered. Find the commander. Find Klexmore. Watch each other's backs. But Mingy was no longer where they expected her to be. While they were running toward the explosion, she had crawled into the main building through a broken window. Inside the building, she found exactly what she hoped to find. This was a mining facility, which meant it had mining equipment. Big machines with cutting tools and crushing arms and conveyor belts. Most importantly, it had a control room where one person could operate all the machines. Mingy sat down at the control panel and began to study the buttons and switches. The writing was in Krolix language, but the symbols were easy to understand. A picture of cutting blades meant the rock cutters. A picture of a conveyor belt meant the transport system. Outside, she could hear the soldiers calling to each other as they searched for their missing commander. Klexmore's blood trail goes toward the main building, called One Soldier. Then we go inside and find whoever killed him, replied Kortham. Mingy smiled as she listened to their radio chatter through Klexmore's helmet, which she had brought with her. They wanted to come inside her hunting ground. Perfect. She started the first machine. A large rock crusher near the main entrance began to turn on with a deep rumbling sound. Its massive metal teeth started spinning, ready to grind up whatever fell into them. Then she started the conveyor belts that fed into the crusher, and the cutting arms that could grab objects and move them around. The mining facility came alive around her like a giant predator made of metal and electricity. Outside, the 4 remaining soldiers heard all the machinery starting up. "What is that noise?" asked Yexmore nervously. "Someone is inside," Kortham replied. "Someone is turning on the equipment," the commander suggested another soldier, hopefully. "No," said Zektul, from where he lay wounded on the ground. "It is her, the dead human. She is preparing to kill all of us." Kortham looked at the main building with its glowing windows and spinning machines. He was beginning to think that maybe Zektul was right. Inside the control room, Mingy found something very useful. The mining facility had speakers in every room and tunnel. She could talk to anyone in the building, or outside it. She pressed the button for the communication system and spoke into the microphone. "Hello, soldiers." Her voice echoed from speakers all around the camp. "My name is Lee Mingy. You killed my friends. Now I am going to kill all of you." Outside, the 4 remaining soldiers looked around nervously. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "That is impossible," whispered Private Yexmore. "We shot her, she was dead." "Humans do not die easily," Kortham replied, but his voice shook a little when he said it. Mingy pressed some buttons on the control panel. She found the facility's computer system and began looking through files. What she found made her smile. The computer had records of every Krolix military operation in this sector, lists of planets they had attacked, numbers of people they had killed or taken as slaves, even personal files about each soldier. She found Kortham's file first. "Sergeant Kortham," she said over the speakers. "Age 34, from the planet Krolix Prime. You have a mate named Celta and 3 children." Kortham's rifle shook in his hands. "How does she know that?" "Your file says you have killed 47 humans in the last 2 years," Mingy continued. "Men, women, children. You burned their homes and took their families as slaves." She paused to let this sink in. "I wonder how your mate, Celta, would feel if someone burned down her home. I wonder how your children would feel if someone took their father away forever." "Stop talking," Kortham shouted at the speakers. "Come out and fight like a warrior." Mingy laughed. The sound echoed through the facility like cold wind. "Fight like a warrior? You mean like how you fought us? 8 soldiers with military weapons against 3 salvage workers with no guns." She found another file. "Private Yexmore, age 26. Your mother still lives on Krolix Prime. She sends you letters every week. The last one said she was proud of her son, the soldier." Yexmore's hands began to shake. What would she think if she knew her proud soldier son shoots unarmed people for sport? "She is just trying to scare us," Yeximore said to the other soldiers. "Dead people cannot read computer files." "But I am not dead," Mingy replied through the speakers. "I am very much alive, and I am learning so many interesting things about all of you." She started one of the cutting machines near the main entrance. The sound of spinning metal blades filled the air. "Sergeant Kortham, your file says you are afraid of small spaces. Something that happened when you were a child. Trapped in a collapsed building for 3 days." Kortham's breathing got faster. "Stop reading that. Private Yexmore, you are afraid of heights. Fell from a tree when you were young and nearly died." "How can she know these things?" Yexmore whispered. "Private Texrun, you are afraid of drowning. Almost drowned in a lake as a child." The 3rd soldier, Texrun, had not spoken yet. Now he looked around wildly, trying to figure out where her voice was coming from. And Private Valox Minji continued, reading from the fourth soldier's file. You are afraid of being buried alive. Your older brother used to lock you in boxes as a joke. All four soldiers were now looking at each other with wide, frightened eyes. She knows everything about us, Texrun said quietly. She is reading military files, Kortham replied. That does not make her magic. No, Minji said over the speakers. It just makes me very good at knowing how to hurt you. She activated a conveyor belt system that ran through the main building. The sound of moving machinery got louder. I want to tell you what I am going to do to each of you. Sergeant Kortham, I am going to trap you in a very small space. Maybe one of the mining tunnels. I will make it smaller and smaller until you cannot move. Kortham felt sweat inside his helmet. Private Yexmore, I am going to take you very high up. Maybe to the top of the mining tower. Then I will let you fall. Very slowly so you have time to think about it. Yexmore looked up at the tall tower and felt sick. Private Texrun, there is a water treatment facility here. Deep tanks full of mining chemicals. Perfect for drowning someone who is afraid of water. Texrun's rifle started shaking in his hands. And Private Valox, I found something special for you. Underground storage chambers where they keep mining equipment. Very deep, very dark. Perfect for burying someone alive. Valox made a small whimpering sound. You are sick, Kortham shouted. We are soldiers. You are just a salvage worker. I was just a salvage worker, Mingi corrected. Now I am something else. Now I am what you made me. She activated more machinery. Rock cutters started spinning, or crushers began turning. The whole facility became alive with the sound of metal, teeth, and spinning blades. You should have learned more about humans before you tried to kill us, she said. We do not forgive. We do not forget. And we do not stop hunting until our prey is dead. She found the facility's lighting controls and turned off half the lights outside. Now there were more shadows for the soldiers to worry about. Private Valox, she said sweetly. You are the youngest, only 22 years old. This is your first military posting, isn't it? Do not answer her, Kortham ordered. Your file says you joined the military to make money for your family. Your parents are poor farmers. Valox started crying inside his helmet. You probably thought this would be easy. Kill some humans, take their things, go home rich. But humans are not easy to kill, are we? She turned on a machine that made a loud grinding sound, like metal being crushed. I am going to give you a chance, Private Valox, just you. Drop your weapon and walk toward the main building. I will make your death quick. Do not listen to her, Kortham commanded. The rest of you will die slowly, Minji continued. Because you chose to kill my friends. But Private Valox can die fast if he surrenders now. Valox looked at his rifle, then at the main building where her voice was coming from. What do I do? He asked the other soldiers. You stay with us, Kortham said firmly. We stick together. She is just one human. Minji laughed again. Just one human. That is what your commander said right before I cut his throat. Would you like to hear his last words? She had recorded Dexvel's dying sounds on Klexmore's helmet. Now she played them through the speakers. Wet gurgling noises and the sound of blood bubbling in his throat. That is what happens when you underestimate humans, she said when the recording finished. All four soldiers looked pale and sick. Time to decide, Private Valox. Quick death, or slow death. You have 30 seconds. She started counting down over the speakers. 30, 29, 28. Valox dropped his rifle. I surrender, he shouted. Please, I surrender. No, Kortham yelled. But it was too late. Valox was already walking toward the main building with his hands up. Good choice, Mingi said softly. Much better than the choice your friends are going to make. She turned off the speakers and began to prepare for Valox's arrival. Outside, the three remaining soldiers watched their youngest comrade walk toward. What they all knew was his death. But they also felt a little relieved. Maybe she would be busy, killing him for a while, Maybe that would give them time to escape. They were wrong. Mingy was just getting started. Private Valux walked slowly toward the main building. His hands shook as he held them up in surrender. Behind him, he could hear his 3 comrades arguing in whispers. "We should help him," Texrun said. "He made his choice," Kortham replied. "Coldly now we make ours." Mingy watched Volox through the building's security cameras. She had studied his file carefully. 22 years old. Afraid of being buried alive, joined the military to help his poor family. When he reached the main entrance, she spoke to him through a speaker near the door. "Stop there," she said. "Put your hands on the wall and do not move." Valox did as she ordered. His whole body was shaking with fear. "Please," he whispered. "You said you would make it quick." "I did," Mingy agreed. "But first, you need to do something for me." She activated one of the mining machines. A large mechanical arm reached out from the building and grabbed Volox around the waist. He screamed as it lifted him off the ground. "What are you doing?" he cried. "I surrendered. You promised." "I promised you a quick death," Mingy said calmly. "I never promised." When the mechanical arm carried Valox to the top of the mining tower, the highest point of the facility. He looked down at the ground far below and screamed again. "You said Private Yexmore was afraid of heights," she continued. "But you are afraid of being buried alive. So this should not scare you too much." She left Valox hanging from the mechanical arm at the top of the tower. Alive, but trapped and terrified. "Let me down," he screamed. "Please, let me down." His voice echoed across the mining camp. The other 3 soldiers could hear every word. "See," Mingy said over the speakers, "I kept my promise. He is not buried alive. He is just hanging in the air, waiting to die. Much better." Yexmore looked up at his friend dangling from the tower and felt sick. That was supposed to be his death. The one designed for someone afraid of heights. "She is playing games with us," Kortham said. "Trying to make us crazy with fear." "It is working," Texrun replied quietly. Mingy activated more machinery. The sound of grinding metal and spinning blades filled the air. She had turned the entire mining facility into a giant killing machine. "Now then," she said over the speakers. 3 soldiers left. "Let me think about who should die next." She had been planning this while reading their files. Each death would be perfectly designed to terrify the others. "Private Texrun," she said. "You are afraid of drowning. Come to the water treatment building, walk inside, and I will make it quick." "No," Texrun shouted. "I will not." "Then I will come and get you," Mingy replied. "But if I have to come and get you, your death will be much slower." She started a pump, a system that began filling one of the water treatment tanks. The sound of rushing liquid echoed through the camp. "You have 5 minutes," she told him. "After that, I start hunting." Texrun looked at Kortham and Yexmore. Both of them stepped away from him. "Do not look at us like that," Kortham said. "We cannot help you. We are soldiers," Texrun cried. "We fight together." "We were soldiers," Yexmore corrected. "Now we are just prey." Texrun realized his comrades had already given up on him. Just like they had given up on he was alone. He walked slowly toward the water treatment building. Knowing he was going to die inside the building, Mingy waited for him. She had filled one of the deep tanks with water mixed with mining chemicals. The liquid glowed with a faint green light and smelled like poison. When Texrun entered the building, she was standing next to the tank wearing a mining suit that protected her from the chemicals. "You came," she said. "Good, that shows courage." "Please," Texrun begged. "Have a family too. A mate and 2 young children." "So did the humans you killed," Mingy replied. "Did you think about their families when you shot them?" Texrun had no answer for that. "Get in the tank," she ordered. "I cannot swim," he said weakly. "I know. That is the point." She activated a mechanical lifter that grabbed Texrun and lowered him into the poisonous water. He thrashed and screamed as the chemicals burned his skin and filled his lungs. It took 3 minutes for him to stop moving. Mingy spoke into her microphone again. 2 soldiers left, she announced, Sergeant Cortham and Private Yexmore. Which one of you wants to die next? Outside, the 2 survivors looked at each other. They both knew they were going to die. The only question was how. We could try to reach the transport ship, Yexmore suggested. She has control of all the machinery, Cortham replied. She will stop us before we get halfway there. Then what do we do? Cortham thought about this. He was the senior soldier. It was his job to make the hard decisions. We split up, he decided. Make her choose between us. Maybe one of us can escape while she kills the other. It was not a good plan, but it was the only plan they had. I will go toward the transport ship, Cortham said. You go toward the mining tunnels. Maybe you can hide there. Yexmore nodded. They shook hands like soldiers do before a battle they know they cannot win. Then they ran in opposite directions. Minji watched them through the security cameras. She had expected this. Splitting up was a good tactical decision. But it would not save them. She had spent the last few minutes setting traps throughout the facility. Mechanical arms that could grab running people. Conveyor belts that led to crushing machines. Hidden pit traps covered with thin metal sheets. Cortham ran toward the transport ship as fast as he could. But when he was halfway there, the ground opened up beneath his feet. He fell into a narrow mining shaft that was barely wide enough for his body. The walls pressed against him from all sides. He could not move his arms or legs. No, he screamed, not like this. His worst fear was small spaces, and now he was trapped in the smallest space possible. Minji's voice came from a speaker in the shaft. Comfortable, Sergeant? She asked. This shaft goes down about 50 meters. The walls get tighter as you go deeper. She started a machine that began to push him slowly down the shaft. The walls pressed tighter and tighter against his body. Please, he begged. Kill me quickly. Do not let me die like this. You did not give my friends a choice, Mingi replied. Why should I give you one? It took Cortham 20 minutes to die. His screams echoed through the facility the entire time. Meanwhile, Yexmore had reached the mining tunnels. He thought he was safe in the darkness underground, but Minji had been waiting for him there. She had set up a trap, using the tunnels, support beams, and some explosive charges. When Yexmore walked past a certain point, the charges went off. The tunnel collapsed behind him, trapping him in a dead end, but it did not collapse completely. There was still air to breathe and space to move around. Private Yexmore, Minji's voice came from speakers in the tunnel. Welcome to your tomb. Let me out, he screamed, clawing at the fallen rocks that blocked the tunnel entrance. This tunnel connects to the underground storage chambers, Minji explained. Very deep underground. Perfect for someone who is afraid of being buried alive. She began to fill the tunnel with sand and loose dirt from the surface. It poured down through small holes she had drilled in the ceiling. Yexmore watched in horror as the sand slowly rose around his feet, then his legs, then his waist. Stop this, he begged. I will do anything. I will tell you military secrets. I will help you. You cannot help me, Mingi said. My friends are already dead, but you can join them. The sand reached his chest, then his neck, then his mouth. His muffled screams stopped a few minutes later. Minji walked outside and looked up at the mining tower. Private Valox was still hanging from the mechanical arm, barely conscious from fear and exhaustion. She lowered him to the ground gently. You said you would make it quick, he whispered. Yes, Minji agreed. I keep my promises. She used Klexmore's vibroknife to cut his throat. It was over in seconds. Then she walked to where she had hidden Commander Vexvel's body. She used the vibroknife to cut off his head and carried it. With her, the Krolix transport ship was still sitting where the soldiers had left it. Minji walked over and activated its communication system. She sent a message to the Krolix fleet. This is Lee Mingi, she said into the microphone. A human from the planet Earth. Your soldiers came to kill me and my friends. They succeeded in killing my friends. They did not succeed in killing me. She held up Vexvel's severed head so the ship's camera could see it. This is Commander Vexvel. He thought humans were weak and easy to kill. He was wrong. She walked outside and found a metal pole near the facility entrance. She put the commander's head on top of the pole like a flag. "Tell your other commanders what happened here," she continued. "Tell them that humans do not forgive, we do not forget, and we do not die as easily as you think." She ended the transmission and looked around the mining camp. 8 Krolok soldiers had come here to kill 3 human salvage workers. Now, only 1 human was left alive. Mingy walked over to where Ajin was sitting behind the old truck. Her friend was still alive, but very weak from blood loss. Whispered, "How are you alive? I saw them shoot you." "Humans are harder to kill than most people think," Mingy replied. She began bandaging Hyjin's wounds with cloth torn from dead soldiers' uniforms. "What happened to the aliens?" Mingy looked back at the mining facility with its spinning machines and blood-stained equipment. At the head on the pole, at the transport ship that would carry news of this day to the Krolok's fleet, "I taught them about Deathworlders," she said simply. Above them, the first Krolok's warships were appearing in the sky, coming to investigate the silence from their strike battalion. They would find exactly what Mingy wanted them to find. A message written in blood and metal and death. A message that said, "Do not hunt humans unless you want to become prey yourself."